Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another morning upload. Today is Sunday, October 6th, and today we're going to talk a little bit about philosophy, but not in the boring sense. So, first, I guess I'll start with kind of a personal anecdote, a story from university about, a bit of my exploration of this topic. So, once we get into that, then I'll tell you how you can do it in a way that actually is going to help you and is actually beneficial to you and is easy to do. I think this was in my third year. I had just finished traveling, and so I was very eager to get my university degree done, get out of the classroom and back into the classroom, just standing at the front. And so I was shopping courses kind of in the first 2 weeks of class. You can switch in and out of courses, no consequence. I was shopping courses essentially to find like the easiest courses that I could take. So by that year, I kind of opened up some options in the sense that I could take a philosophy course. And so I registered into 3 different philosophy courses, maybe 4, but I think it was 3. I think by 3, I had had enough. And so most people's experience with philosophy is probably one of 2 things. One, they're incredibly bored of it and they find it boring, uninteresting, they find it hard to engage with. Or 2, like my own, what they experience is just so absurd and so ridiculous that it really pushes them away from I don't want to think about philosophy at all. That's for idiots. What do I mean by that? So my story is that as I'm sitting in this philosophy class, it is a 50-minute class, and the professor and a student, I swear to God, went into one another for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, discussing whether or not a chair in the classroom was real. Just imagine sitting in a university lecture. I was paying, $560 a course, and I'm listening to these 2 morons talk about whether or not this chair at the front of the classroom was real. How do we know it's real? And my thought was, who gives a shit? There are people starving. There are people who are suffering. There are things that are really happening. And, one of the best philosophy life advices I've heard is that, one of the only things we know is real is, pain, right? You can't deny when someone's in pain. Now, people can fake it, sure, but, if you've seen someone injure themselves or get hit really hard, that pain, that suffering, it feels very real to them. And in many instances, it looks very real. Something is happening with someone who is, kind of screaming as their arm is broken, or they've, if anyone's gone to a playground and watched a kid fall off of a swing or whatever, they hit the ground, and what do? They start crying. So clearly pain is real, right? Suffering is real. We can see it objectively. And to spend what felt like and might actually have been 30 minutes of a 50-minute class talking about whether or not the damn chair was real was so stupid. I dropped that class after. If I were enrolled in that now, because I was a different man then, I actually stayed for the whole class. If I was enrolled now, I would literally get up, middle of the class, push people aside, and just leave the room, because that was so incredibly stupid. I literally wasted 50 minutes of my life there. So today I'm here to talk to you about a type of philosophy that will not waste your time and that will actually produce tremendous results in regards to, how you live your life, how you interpret information and events happening to you, how you process them, and then how you act about them. And that type of philosophy is called Stoic philosophy. And a wonderful book you could read is called The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. For any of my students, particularly my recent ones who just read or heard my teacher introduction, you'll know that Ryan Holiday is one of my mentors and role models. He's in my slideshow. There's a beautiful picture of him. As the book title says, The Daily Stoic is 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. That's how Ryan Holiday himself kind of describes Stoicism. My experience with Stoicism has been pretty much the same. It has essentially taught me how to deal with idiots. It has taught me how to deal with people who are, conniving, right? People who are insufferable, right? It has taught a lot about how to deal with people. In addition to that, it's also taught a lot about how to deal with external events. One of the greatest Stoic quotes out there is that there are things you can control and there are things you can't control. And take a guess. Which one are you supposed to focus on? Which one are you supposed to really think about and, meditate on? The things you can control. But Stoicism gives, and particularly this book, gives you that regular daily reminder on occasion to think about what you're focused on. Is it how people respond, or is it the way you communicate? Is it the way people act in the world, or the manner in which you engage with them? Is it trying to stop things that are inevitable, or is it accepting the truth and reality of life? Another thing I like about Stoicism is that, particularly when you're young, so I think I first got a hold of this book and got a hold of this topic in my early 20s. The younger you are, the more likely you tend to think that your problems are so unique to you, that are so rare, that no one else has them, and you tend to think that I don't know what to do. Nobody I know has this problem. Nobody else knows what I'm going through. They don't understand. And you don't realize that you're just a silly child with an naive and incomplete view of the world. The quotes in this book really highlight that a lot of these problems have been in existence for thousands of years. So many people might know who Marcus Aurelius is. Marcus Aurelius had this passage that he would read on a daily basis, which essentially reminded him that he was going to deal with people who are lazy, going to deal with people who are, they're mischievous, they have their own plans, their own plots. He's going to deal with people who make him angry, who just get in his way. And then the second half of the passage essentially encourages him to think this is just life. This is how things are. These people are just going to exist, and you have to deal with them with wisdom and temperance. He can't lash out. Marcus Aurelius was, a ruler, a leader of his time. And so he had to be above the rest of these people, right? He felt himself called to a higher purpose. And so in reading, learning, and discovering more about Stoic philosophy, for me, it really changed my perspective on life, because I started to realize, oh, wait a minute. So this guy who lived 2,000, 1,000, 3,000 years ago, wait a second, he also dealt with idiots? Oh, geez. If he dealt with idiots, then no wonder I'm dealing with idiots. Regardless, Marcus Aurelius is talking about the people he dealt with in his daily life, the people he saw on a daily basis and their behavior. Reading Stoicism gives you a sense of perspective because, some of these quotes, some of these people, they're ancient. They're like 2,000 years old. And they talk about how to deal with jealousy, how to deal with envy, how to deal with greed, how to deal with hate, right? All of these very human things. And so I found Stoicism to be a very human philosophy. I also found it to be very practical and very easy to follow. Let me just open up to a random page. Okay, July 28th. It's titled, Check Your Privilege. Okay. And the quote by Musonius Rufus reads, "Some people are sharp and others dull. Some are raised in a better environment, others in worse. The latter, having inferior habits and nurture, will require more by way of proof and careful instruction to master those teachings and to be formed by them. In the same way that bodies in a bad state must be given a great deal of care when perfect health is sought." Think to yourself, is that not still a common problem? So if someone, potentially, 500 to 2,000 years ago is dealing with that issue, you're dealing with the issue as well, right? If you deal with people, you'll discover that people have differing levels of capacity, and that's due to a number of reasons, right? It could be genetic, it could be environmental, it could be kind of social, the way they grew up, the opportunities they had, the opportunities they accepted as well, right? Because some people will be given an opportunity and not take it. If you're someone who has taken a lot of opportunities presented to you in the past and you've increased your competency and your capacity for, anything in general, you're still going to have to deal with people who chose not to accept those opportunities, who chose to stay limited and to stay in this kind of finite existence. So I guess to begin the conclusion of the video, I'll kind of ask and say, kind of encourage the viewer to think, why should you read about Stoicism? Why should you spend 5-10 minutes every day reading an excerpt from the Daily Stoic to better yourself? Well, you got to ask yourself, are you going to be dealing with people every single day? If you are, then Stoicism's for you. Are you a human being with all of the natural biological realities of a human being? If you are, then you're going to deal with a lot of the internal struggles that they talk about in Stoicism in this book. You're going to deal with a lot of the external realities as well, like loss, death, embarrassment, exile, right? Potentially, right? If you're depending on the way you live. On the other hand, you could choose to just go through life kind of obliviously in an emotional state where you're just constantly reacting to the world, to the environment, to everything happening around you, and you're frustrated, you're angry, you're resentful, maybe you're bitter, right? And you have this inflated sense of ego that everyone around you is an idiot and I'm the best person. Part of what Stoicism teaches you is that, hey, you're a person as well. So in your life, you have a lot of inconveniences you deal with, but in many other people's life, you're the inconvenience. And so you should be mindful of that, right? And you should be maybe a little bit more forgiving with other people, to be hard on oneself and easy on others, right? Because you don't know what's going on with them. And despite the fact that they make mistakes, well, you make mistakes as well. So be really critical, have that really internal focus, an eye on yourself, on your mistakes, and let people kind of make their mistakes. And Stoicism isn't a philosophy about, kind of laying down like a doormat and just letting people walk all over you. By no means do you have to see these people's incompetencies, their inconveniences that they cause you, and continue to accept that. You can absolutely have boundaries and say, you know what, I don't want this person in my life anymore. I don't need this in my life anymore. That is totally acceptable, but it's the manner in which you engage with that and deal with that. That's what Stoicism is preparing you for. Hopefully this video has convinced you to read Stoicism. If not, I haven't done my job really well marketing it through this video. I would describe Stoicism, the Daily Stoic. I've read through this whole book once, again, one page a day, right? And the pages, I'll flip to another one just so you can see, there's not a whole lot of writing, right? So in the morning, I know a lot of people don't have a daily practice of reading spiritual scripture. Even I struggle with that. Sometimes I prefer to listen. But for a long time, I thought of this book as, my Bible, right? I'd read it every single morning and I'd reflect and meditate on the wisdom that it was sharing with me. And being someone who kind of works with the public, deals with the public, is kind of outside in the public, is extroverted, it's helped me a lot to deal with the challenges of people. For being a human being who's going to go through human problems, I kind of spent some time recently jobless. I lost a parent recently. A lot of my friends have moved away in life. All these things that happen because they happen to everyone and they're undeniable. Stoicism also prepares you for those, right? It readies you for these losses you're going to experience in life. And it really encourages and asks you and challenges you. It's like, okay, all these things that are going to happen that you're ignoring, you're not thinking of, right? There's a couple different sayings, memento mori, and there's a couple others that remind you that your time here is limited, that you're going to die, that things are finite, right? They're limited. And how are you going to act? How are you going to engage in the world? And so hopefully I've done a good job convincing you to, at the least, go and read the Daily Stoic. I'm sure it's at the library. If you're one of my students and you want to read it, let me know. I can bring this copy to school or work and lend you a copy. If you're already familiar with Stoicism, drop down below your favorite Stoic quote. I think that might be my next video. I might do a top 5, but let me know what you think in the comments. Peace out.